Hey, what's going on, guys? Back for week 7 here, setting DraftKings.com lineup. Hopefully, week 6 was good to you. And let's hop right into this. I think we'll get rid of the unsexy pick here, just knock our defense out of the way. And that's going to be the Cleveland Browns, sitting at $3,000. They go up against Jacksonville, against Blake Bortles. I think Jacksonville is sitting at like the second, maybe the third lowest team total on the week. So that's always a good thing. But the primary thing here is that the Browns go against Blake Bortles. He knows how to throw a pick or two. And they're sitting at $3,000, which I think is more than appropriate for a defense. So let's plug those guys in and let's start getting rid of some of the other positions that we have. Let's do our running back here, and there are definitely some good running backs. I think if you're paying up for a running back this week, Matt Forte is probably your guy. I wouldn't necessarily argue DeMarco Murray, but I think on DraftKings where it's full point per reception, that Forte, he sets a little bit higher of a floor. The guy averaged seven receptions a game. I know DeMarco kind of makes up for that in rush attempts a game, but I think that I would definitely rather take Forte, especially. I mean, $200 isn't a ton, but it can definitely go a long way when you're looking at final roster construction. So you got Matt Forte at $9,400, but that is not the guy that we're going to go with. I'm actually going to take Le'Veon Bell here at $6,600. I think he's got a better matchup than Forte and Murray. New York and Miami are both inside the top 10 rush defenses, according to Pro Football Focus. And Bell gets a Houston team that gives up an average of 126 yards to opposing teams' running backs. Now, PFF has the Houston rush defense ranked outside the top 25, and they've given up 4 rushing TDs in the past 6 games. And the other thing here is that Bell, he offers a pretty significant salary break, right? So at $6,600 versus Forte and Murray were $9,400 and up. It's $9,400 for Forte, and DeMarco was sitting at $9,600. So I think Bell just offers like I said, that significant salary break. And if you're wanting to pay up your quarterback position, he offers you a safe floor and the salary cap break. And that floor comes from his pass catching ability. So I think the only downside with Bell is that Pittsburgh is only calling run plays 34% of the time in the red zone, which is second best for second worst in the NFL. And Bell has seen really seen the consequences of that, as he has just 1 TD through 6 games so far. Like I said, though, he catches passes. That's where his floor is at. He's averaging 5 receptions a game, and he's turning those 5 receptions into an average of 42 yards per game. So Bell at $6,600, I think, is a price point that we need to exploit. And I kind of had said that if you go with Bell, it gives you a good opportunity to pay it for quarterback, but I don't think that's something that we need to do this week. So what do you say we get rid of our quarterback here? And I'm a big fan of Aaron Rodgers at $8,800. If I don't go with Colin Kaepernick, who I'm going to be putting into this lineup at $6,500, Aaron Rodgers is my pivot. If I go a little bit cheaper at wide receiver or a little bit cheaper at running back, then Aaron Rodgers is definitely the guy that I'm looking at. But for now, I think without a doubt, Colin Kaepernick is going to be that, not only my highest owned quarterback this weekend, but I think that he will be the highest owned quarterback this weekend, simply due to that $6,500 price point. He comes in as the 16th cheapest quarterback here on DraftKings, but he's averaging 20 fantasy points per game. So obviously he sets a very safe floor for you in your cash game lineups. San Francisco's team total only sits at 22, but they are a 7-point underdog, indicating that the volume for Kaepernick is going to be there. So his dropbacks should be increased, and dropbacks for Colin Kaepernick increases his rushing attempts simply because he's a quarterback with legs, but also the pass attempts should be increased too. And when you take in that Kaepernick averages 36 dropbacks per game, and each dropback is netting him an average of 0.54 fantasy points, it's just, you look at that and then you take the expected increase in volume that Denver allows the quarterbacks, Kaepernick's rushing ability at 40 yards a game, and his salary. He's probably the best quarterback play this week, given all of those things factored in. And salary is probably the biggest thing there. But going up against Denver, like I said, with the expected increase in volume in total, including his legs, I think is the big thing to take here. For your cash game lineups at $6,500, it's not trying to really diversify. I'm not trying to find a low-owned guy in my cash game lineups. I want somebody who I can count on. And I think that's Colin Kaepernick this week in Denver. So, what else do we have? I guess we have a lot of positions to get rid of. Let's get rid of our flex position. And this is a guy that I chose on the recent news with Percy getting sent to the Jets, and that's Doug Baldwin. He's $3,300, and according to Pro Football Focus.com, the Rams grade out as a 22nd worst pass coverage, and the Seattle's team total sits at 25 points, which is that's a pretty healthy team total. I think you had a lot of guys sitting at like 23, 22, and then you had the upper echelon sitting at 28.5. I think Denver's sitting close to 30, like 29.5. So 25 is pretty healthy for the week. They're 6-point favorites, which kind of indicates that Lynch might get some more burn, but they have to get to 25 points first. So I think Doug Baldwin he's going to be the main beneficiary of Percy leaving Seattle. And Kearse might see more red zone looks, but for a cash game play, I think we want to look at a guy who is going to set a nice floor with us. Look at like 6-ish targets. Hopefully he has a 70% catch rate, 65% catch rate on those targets, and maybe we go, I don't know, 4 targets for 60 yards. Like I would be totally great with 10 points from $3,300 at a Doug Baldwin with some upside there due to that team total. I think it's definitely more of a tournament play, but I feel okay with it in my cash games lineups for $3,300 because it opens up some doors for us for the rest of our team here. We're looking at an average of $6,100, and that's going to give us some room to work with. So, speaking of, spending up a little bit more on wide receivers, well, I mean, technically, he's not really spending up. He should be, but he's not, and that's Brandon Marshall sitting at $6,300. The price point I just really think needs to be taken advantage of here on DraftKings. He's currently getting 26% of his team's market share in the red zone, which is kind of just, I mean, it's okay, but it's Brandon Marshall, right? He's only seeing 26%, but when you look at Forte, Bennett, Alshon, they're all on the same team with Marshall. I think that speaks volumes to how much Cutler loves Marshall. The other thing that we have to look at too is that Marshall should square up against Jimmy Wilson and create a decent size mismatch versus Jimmy Wilson, who stands at 5'11". So you should look to see Cutler take advantage of that size mismatch in the red zone. And it's such a, I don't want to call it a pricing error, but at $6,300, the guy should totally be like $7,000, somewhere around there. Like if we look at other wide receivers here, we got T.Y. Hilton at $7,000, Mohamed Sanu at $7,000. Like Brandon, it's just something that you should exploit. I think that you should plug him in and kind of go from there. He's just a really good staple for your cash game lineups. We got another running back spot to kill here, so let's get rid of our second running back. Big fan of Gio Bernard this week. $7,800, a little too rich for my blood. I mean, based on what he's shown and what he can do, I think it's a good dollar per point is probably right on par. But the guy that I'm looking at is Andre Ellington, and I think other than Colin Kaepernick, Andre Ellington will probably be my highest owned player in cash games this week. He currently accounts for 24% of his team's red zone attempts and is averaging 24 touches per game while catching an average of 4 passes per game. Pro Football Focus has Oakland ranked as a 22nd worst run defense, and they have given up an average of 150 yards to opposing teams' running backs. And during that same sample size where they're giving up 150 yards, they've also surrendered 5 TDs to date. So it's a really good matchup for Andre Ellington sitting at $6,500. I think he's the primary back in that backfield, and that was something that we were all hoping for as a seasonal long community, and it's panning out that way. So it's really nice for Andre Ellington. We've got 2 wide receivers and a tight end to get rid of here. I'm going to get rid of our second wide receiver, and that is going to be the highest priced guy on DraftKings, and it is Jordy Nelson. And this is kind of where Colin Kaepernick and Doug Baldwin come into play. Is Jordy Nelson is a guy that I am starting to consider building my cash game lineups around. He leads the NFL in targets and currently has 15 red zone targets to go with an outstanding 37% target market share. And he also sits at second in the league for yards after the catch. When you look up who he's facing as far as defensive pass coverage, so if you go to profootballfocus.com and you scroll all the way down to the bottom of their pass coverage ratings, and you look at the worst player, that worst player is Carson. And guess who he is going to be covering on Sunday? He's going to be covering Jordy Nelson. It is just one of the best matchups that I think that you can look for right now. To touch briefly on Aaron Rodgers, I believe that he has the league's best completion rate of passes over 20 yards or more. And Carolina is giving up like the 11th most completions of 20 yards or more. And Jordy Nelson is the focal point of those plays. So everything is pointing to Jordy Nelson, other than his salary, obviously the most expensive guy, but it's just something that I want to pay up for. Typically in cash games, I'm paying up for running backs and paying up for quarterbacks, but due to the pricing this week, I think that we're getting top tier quarterback and running back at a decent price. So we're able to focus on our wide receivers and build in some of these guys who I truly believe are going to reduce for you in your cash game lineups. So let's see here. We've got our last wide receiver and our last tight end here. Oh, let's get rid of our tight end. And this guy it's somebody who I was a really big fan of last season and a big fan of again this season. And it's Jordan Cameron at $4,600. I'm sorry if you listened to my Gronkowski love if you guys got in on the Thursday lineups, because that obviously didn't pan out. And I think it's kind of hard to fit in Julius Thomas this week. So it leaves me with a mid-tier guy, and then it leaves me with Larry Donnell at $3,500. So for me, it's Jordan Cameron at $4,600, and he gets paired up with a Jags defense that has allowed 5 touchdowns to opposing teams' tight ends so far this year. So I think if Cameron sees the volume that he should, and the Jags are giving up 8 targets per game to opposing teams' tight ends, I don't see him having any kind of a problem meeting his expected points based off of his dollar, right? So at $4,600, I think that he sees that, and the best part is I think that he has an exceptional opportunity exceeding what you paid for in him. So Jordan Cameron at tight end at $4,600. It leaves us $5,000 for our last wide receiver here, and there's some decent options. I'm a big fan of Andre Johnson at $5,200. It just didn't kind of work out for this lineup as I started piecing it together. If you want to pair up Michael Crabtree at $4,900, I think once again just more on the volume side of things, and then obviously Michael Crabtree's skill set at $4,900. I don't think you can go wrong. The one guy that I plugged in for this lineup though was Michael Floyd at $5,000. It's kind of just him finally seeing what we all thought we were going to see this year. And he's got Carson Palmer back under center, which is huge. He averages 4.5 catches, 83 yards, and a TD per game when Palmer's been under center this year. And granted, it's 2 games, super small sample size, but it's worth noting that the upgrade in quarterback is more than a small uptick. It's a pretty large upgrade going back to Carson Palmer. Arizona's team total sits at a healthy 24 points per game. So it's something that I think at $5,000 you're getting a wide receiver. I don't know. I guess I consider him a wide receiver too in seasonal leagues, and quite frankly, if you went, running back in rounds 1 and 2, you're getting a wide receiver. He might be your wide receiver 1. If you went, I don't know, all stupid like I did and went Gronkowski in the 3rd round in a ton of leagues, and then Michael Floyd. So anyways, this isn't seasonal. I'll shut up. This is what we got. Zeroed out our salary, and I'm definitely gonna mess with this. I'm not a really big fan of it. Like, I could see myself getting off of Jordy, Cameron, Doug Baldwin, and taking a huge hit at wide receiver, and not a huge hit as far as what I think production-wise will be, but as far as salary is concerned. And you could look at a guy, if Kelvin Benjamin is good to go, $5,600, big fan of him. I think the guy that I talked about, though, was Andre Johnson at $5,200. And then at your tight end, if you look at Larry, at $3,500. So now we have $7,400 to spend on our flex, and so it gives you a lot of room to work with. You could look to Lynch. Like I said, I think Lynch is going to get a decent amount of touches just due to the 6.5-point favorites that Seattle is. So who else? $6,900 at Julius Thomas if you want to flex him out. That also gives you another $500 to work with. So it's just kind of showing you a couple different variations here. So that's where we're at for week 7. Make sure you guys check out the daily analysis that I write up, the cheat sheets that I do. Make sure you cruise over to projectroto.com and check out Matt Riddle's Garbage Pail Kids. He basically goes through and highlights a ton of cheap plays for you. So if you're looking to punt at a position or two, and it's I think Nick and T are. Well, I know T is still top 10 in overall rankings, and then Nick is. I think he kind of took a hit this week, but he's still top 20, 25-ish. So make sure you check out their rankings, and if you're ever confused, just hit the consensus rankings on those two guys and see where they land at as a team, because they're killing it right now. So anyways, that's it for week 7. Let's go ahead and toss this lineup in, and I am out of here. Take care, guys.